Welcome to the Woodshed with Cody Wood on the Equus Radio Network, where some amazing guests stop in, share their stories, and have a few laughs along the way. From the rodeo road to everyday life, it's all part of the ride. Here's your host, Cody Wood.
Well, hello, everybody. I am back in the great state of Wyoming and wanted to take an opportunity to kind of recap over the last couple of weeks here, and especially at the National Finals Rodeo there live from the Virgin Hotel. Had a lot of great responses when it came to a lot of the different shows that we had, and I was just so appreciative to the guests for taking the time to come on to the show, and also to some of our great partners to help support the show and keep things moving and kind of have a very successful first launch, if you will. And so just wanted to take a moment. I hope you all are having a great day out there right now, getting ready for a great Christmas and New Year holiday. But like I said, without further ado, thank you so much to all of the guests that joined us. We went out to Las Vegas with the hopes of having, 10 podcasts, one each day. And when all was said and done, we ended up having, 19 total in a 10-day period. And so very grateful for each and every one of the guests that joined us. And thank you so much to Cupid Hay Company, Challenge of Champions Tour, Buildings by Design, True Western Roundup, Visit Cheyenne, Wilo Ranch, EXP Realty Land and Ranch, Apex Next Evolution, Leviate Air Group, and the folks over at Tartar at the Tartar Gate Company. Thank you all so much for supporting us, over the last couple of weeks and the 10 days of the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo. What an amazing rodeo it was. I mean, every single year, the NFR is just so special. We talked about it on a couple of the shows where, whether it's the Super Bowl or the World Series or the Stanley Cup, every sport is glorious in its own way and has some amazing aspects, and sports in itself are just, an amazing opportunity to see human greatness firsthand. And at the National Finals Rodeo, in my mind, PBR World Finals as well, but you can see greatness in such a raw look at it in every single individual. So, in rodeo, it's obviously extremely dangerous. It can get really rough really quick. And that mental aspect of our sport makes that aspect of greatness so much more valuable and evident when it comes down to it. If you look at, past years, like Kai Hamilton, comes to mind when he, got knocked out, had to leave the hospital to come in to get on his bull, and that moment and that opportunity afforded him on to being the 2023 world champion. Moments like that really stand out when it comes to rodeo and bull riding and some of the differences that we may see in our sport when it comes to the year end and our championship. And so, this last year at the NFR, in every single event, each and every one of the champions had to overcome some sort of challenge or adversity over the 10-day period. When you're talking about a 10-day event, there's without question going to be some sort of adversity and some more than others and some more storylines than others. But at the end of the day, every single one of those champions really had to earn it. And the rest of the pack did not hold back and kept the pressure on them throughout the entire process. But, whether it comes down to, Rocker Steiner winning his first world title and all the conversation that surrounds Rocker and his family and, what that, some people might say, and not the most traditional sense, but at the end of the day, a Rocker Steiner world champion is absolutely good for the sport of rodeo. And that's what matters most. And he put in the work, he put in a lot of effort to get to where he is at and to achieve the goals that he set out to achieve. And so, big storyline there with Rocker winning his first world title, Tucker Allen and, what he had to overcome with his pickup truck getting stolen, even though they talked about it a lot and him being a little bit more undersized than the rest of the pack. But that obviously did not slow him down. And, the team roping was as tough as it gets, coming down to the final round and having such a big swing there in the average race, a really clear indication of how important every single run is in that 10-day period and how much weight the aggregate will play, at the National Finals Rodeo in itself. You move on to the saddle bronc ride, and I couldn't be happier to see the littlest brother jump out and win their first world title, and Statler Wright, how cool of a family legacy is that in general, to just have success from so many different individuals in one family, and Statler Wright being the youngest of the group, now, putting his mark and getting himself a gold buckle, and then in the tie down roping, I mean, that's a great example of just sheer greatness and dominance 3 times in 3 years in a row, and still so young. And Riley Webb, that might not get any scarier for the rest of the tie down roping world, and what that landscape might look like over the next 10 to 15 years. If he's already got 3, we might be looking at a serious dynasty when it comes to tie down roping and when it comes to Riley Webb. So going to be fun to watch here over the next many, many years. Then barrel racing, very similar situation in Cassie Mowry going in and, going back to back world titles. And again, dominating in a lot of ways, for sure, showing and proving that she is the best jockey on the planet, and did it with grace and beauty and all the different things, and multiple horses. Just a really standout showing in the barrel racing from Cassie Mowry. And in a year where, for good reason, a lot of people talked about the bull riding being better than it had been in years and years. That's because it for sure was. I mean, we've had individual or 1-2 different performances over a 10-day period that showed out and was, kind of showed out in a big way. But no, in years now at the NFR, did that many guys from 1st to 15th really show up and ride really good bulls. I absolutely enjoyed every single round of the bull riding and the future of the bull riding in at the NFR and the PRCA and some of these young bull riders, and what that's going to look like for the next few years to come. But, at the end of the day, TJ Gray made a big, strong push, making some of the biggest bull rides of the entire 10 days. But Stetson Wright, is just so consistent, so athletic, so dominant, and capping off another world title, and then affording himself another world title and another all-around championship. So, it is awesome to have a superstar in any sport, as they play such a huge role when it comes to, just elevating the sport, giving, shining a bright light on our sport, and boy, Stetson does that in spades. And, for any of us involved in rodeo or rodeo fans, need to be grateful that we have got Superman when it comes to Stetson Wright and what he has done over, his short here career and overall scheme of things, still relatively young. And, so another big time successful season for him, coming off injury and everything else. But overall, the NFR was great. Thank you to the Virgin Hotel for hosting us and giving us our platform to kind of kick things off and to provide such great guests. Again, it was amazing not just to have a couple of great guests, but we had a ton of them, and really high quality people that I was thrilled to get a chance to chat with and to have on the show. So thank you to each and every one of those guests once again, and all of our partners. But, now that the NFR is over and, and the year keeps rolling, one of the things that myself specifically, for anybody that knows me or hasn't gotten to know me yet, I am a big football fan. I am a football player at heart. It is absolutely one of my first loves in life, and everything about football. I absolutely love it. And when it comes to college football specifically, I've got an opinion on a lot of different things, and just love to talk about it. So, even though I'm just here solo today, just wanted to kind of take a moment as we're here on the eve of the college football playoff and kind of, give my opinion on a couple of things, start a conversation. Would love for y'all to join that conversation. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions when it comes to football in general, and the college football playoff specifically, but kind of get right into it, give you a little bit of background. So, as so college football has for the longest time, up until, a few years back, been really just decided by, AP poll, coaches poll, and the top 2 teams got essentially voted on, and they played in a national championship game. And then we finally, after years and years, finally had a 4-team playoff. And then that 4-team playoff, after more begging, has finally turned into a 12-team playoff. And for the life of me, I don't understand why it's taken this long to take the second largest sport in the entire United States, only behind the National Football League, and finally figure out the best way to find a champion. But here we are. It's been a progress, over decades now, and just wanted to state that to remind everybody where we once were. We once were at a situation where there was no playoff. There was no opportunity to crown a champion on the field, in a sense. And it was just so frustrating in a lot of ways, growing up being a football fan. But here we are, and now we got 12 teams. But I say all that to give you a little heads up. So back in about 2009, 2010, to give you an idea of how into this I am, I actually put together about a 16-page PowerPoint. And so from about 2010 all the way till 2018 for sure. And then even here recently, just not as aggressively, just because we finally have made some progress on a playoff. But I put together a PowerPoint on exactly how I would propose to do a playoff system in college football. Now, probably wasting my time and money, but I enjoyed it, and I would build it. I would put it all together every single year and how that format worked, and then I would send it off. I would send it off to some of the smaller schools, a lot of times like Boise State, right, because they were so good and usually getting left out of an opportunity to participate in some of the bowl games or particular, process of getting their name in the hat, if you will. And so I'd send it to a lot of smaller school head coaches, and then I'd also send it to, commentators at ESPN and different places like that. And I ended up getting multiple responses back, the biggest of which being from Lou Holtz, the old Notre Dame head football coach. Skip Bayless, was another one. But I really appreciated the one and the response back from Lou Holtz. It was handwritten, which is obviously just awesome in itself to have a letter from such a historical, figure. But then it also was very, specific on, what his response was. He basically said he absolutely loved what I put together, but he also said, he didn't know if it would ever happen. He, just like anything in life, he said to follow the money and you will find, kind of the solution or the reason why, a lot of these things hadn't occurred yet. And so that obviously makes sense, right? Follow the money. And at the same time, that also gives you your answers. You need to look at this as a business and not just some fan and what you want to see. The money has to make sense as well. There's obviously individuals that are making a large amount of money and they don't want certain things to change. And so to inevitably create change, you need to have pressure points to where maybe they're not making the same amount of money, but somebody else or some other situation is just so good that it can't be denied. So when you look at college football right now and some of the things that people absolutely, are frustrated about, or the opinions come up on what needs to change, a lot of times it's, right now the heavy conversation is, the group of 5 and how you're able to qualify, right? And people, don't love that, somebody like a James Madison can get into the tournament and have an opportunity where somebody like a Notre Dame or BYU is sitting at home. Now that is valid and makes sense and pure in what you're referring to now. But the thing is, and where I would challenge you, and where no other commentator I ever have heard him even take this approach, is, again, this is a business. And in my mind, if you're running a business, it is your job to get as much market share as possible when it comes to your business and being successful. So if you're Coke and you need to take as much market share from Pepsi as possible. So right now, if we're college football, we need to be taking as much market share from, one, the National Football League is the clear one to be, trying to compete with. And then 2, the NBA, because of the seasons and whatever else. But ultimately, that's the goal. right? How are you going to create more market share inside your sport? And so with college football, when you talk about the group of 5 and who gets to qualify and things like that, I challenge you to think outside the box. Think not just from right now and what James Madison is in this example this year, but what could James Madison be 10 years from now with this opportunity, and what that does for the overall fan base of college football and how many more fans that could ultimately create. So again, go back to last decade plus in Boise State. Boise State had got a lot of opportunities, but then got cut short when it came to the bowl games and the national championship title and that sort of thing. So my opinion is one, you need to go from 12 to 16. That's a no-brainer. I still don't fully understand why we would just be giving the top 4 teams a bye. I get it sounds nice, but ultimately more games, more revenue, more opportunity for teams to get in. You go from 12 to 16. That actually puts you at a place where BYU, Notre Dame, Utah, some of these teams that we've been talking about, Vanderbilt, that should have an opportunity to get into the tournament, don't, because the way that it's set up right now. So just going to 16 teams in general, that solves a lot of problems and creates a lot of opportunity. So that's first and foremost. Second is doing away with the group of 5 conference champion getting into the tournament, to me, really hurts the overall platform of college football. Now, again, James Madison probably going to get smoked by Oregon. I understand that. However, now what this does for James Madison, the amount that they will be able to create and money they're going to bring in from revenue, the opportunity to recruit, what this will do for their overall program and where it'll take them over the next 10 years. Now, yes, James Madison or Tulane, they're directly getting impacted right now. However, it's not just them that's getting impacted. You look at North Texas, look at Old Dominion, look at some of these other schools that were right there on the cusp of making it in. They now have a story to tell. They now have an opportunity to go tell their recruits. And, if they have a group or the opportunity to provide some NIL number, they could drastically change their program overnight. Look at Texas Tech and what they've been able to do year over year from last year till now. Now they have the number 1 defense in the country. They're they're ranked number 4 in the country. They have a first-round bye in the playoff, and they have a path to a national championship. So when you do this, what is it doing? How does it tie back into the market share that we were just referring to? So, a lot of the times you got to step back and stop listening to a lot of the pundits because, again, follow the money. A lot of those pundits on ESPN and different things, they have made a living off of pushing and promoting the SEC. Now, obviously, the SEC still right now is the number 1 conference. Big Ten, obviously, probably right there with them now, obviously, over the last couple of years. But as a whole, the SEC gets the most media coverage. They have the largest fan bases and everything else, and for good reason. But that's because of decades of success, decades of almost having a monopoly on the sport itself. And so what that's done is it's created pockets of fans. Now, myself, I grew up outside of Denver, Colorado, live in Wyoming now currently. Now everybody has their love for their school and their college and that sort of thing. But when it comes to, again, creating more market share and taking it away from the NFL, you need to capture these fans that are in different markets that aren't currently watching college football. So you look at Los Angeles, you look at, any other, big state, like whether it's, even in Minneapolis or some of the pockets up in the Northeast, look at, New York and some of those areas that, are not college football driven like it is in the South. Now, you give somebody like a James Madison an opportunity to grow, be showcased on national television, and over the course of 10 years, and it's not just James Madison, again, it trickles down to all these different G5s and what they might be able to do. You are looking at a new platform, a new look in college football. You're going to start to capture some of those more, weekend warrior fans, if you will, or, just fans that love the sport during the tournament. And that's okay. Look at NCAA basketball. Very few people watch NCAA basketball throughout the season, but when they get to, the NCAA tournament, it is one of the biggest sporting events on the entire calendar year globally, and you start to see people become fans of, the smaller schools and the Cinderella stories and that sort of thing. And again, that's all good and great for the entertainment aspect of that particular game, that particular tournament. But what I'm looking at is the overall scheme of things on what this does for the overall sport itself and what it could do for success in some other schools. Now, I mentioned Texas Tech. That's a good example, but look at Indiana. In a short period of time, because of the college football playoff, because of NIL and name, image, and likeness, you now have a new powerhouse that happened seemingly overnight. Now, obviously, it wasn't overnight. They've done a fantastic job over the last few years to build what they have now. But that's a quick turnaround with the resources and the opportunities that are now available with inside this sport that weren't there just a few years ago. So, let's take other schools, whether it's inside the Big 12 and the ACC, unfortunately, really dropped the ball this year. Them as a conference was very even, didn't have one big standout. So it did create even more opportunity for the folks that, the haters of the college football playoff to chirp. But, the ACC has got a tremendous amount of opportunity to grow and have schools that could really take advantage of this overall concept in general. But again, other things that need to take place, the conference realignment, the fact that the Pac-12 basically dissolved and you have these, SEC and Big Ten having so many schools in it now, that has been a detriment. It's hurt the whole process in itself, which leads me to believe, and what I've proposed to begin with, is that the conference championship needs to have the most weight possible. That needs to play a huge role in the overall process of, one, getting into the tournament for sure, and then two, where you're seated in that overall scheme of things. I think that it would also press some of the independents, like Notre Dame specifically, to not kind of get a free pass when it comes to those sort of things. And then it would make the Pac-12, in that example, more relevant again. It's unfortunate that it's been broken up and broken apart, the Big 12 as well, in a sense, but it again would break up the country, expand the market share, and give opportunity to certain schools that may, want to put in the effort, put in the money, and put in the work to become the next Alabama, to become the next Ohio State. Now, they might not ever get to that level, but if they increase by 10, 15, 20%, and that trickles down to the entire sport, and you take 10, 15% market share away from the National Football League, that's a big deal. That, 10, 15% market share, and you're dipping into, the NFL, that is a massive, massive deal. So, a couple of other things, obviously, when it comes to college football, and it is a frustration. I'm happy to see that the kids are getting paid now. You're talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds that are making a large amount of money. Obviously, there needs to be some sort of structure in place to where they're not getting, where they're not, being able to leave just 1 year in and being able to leave immediately. There has to be some ability to make them commit, maybe give them a little bit larger amount. Either way, some of those schools, some of the representatives kind of need to be held to a higher standard. And obviously the athletes themselves absolutely need to be held to a higher standard if they want to make that much money. And so hopefully they make some changes when it comes to the contract side of things with the NIL and the calendar and all those things. But I just wanted to come on here, talk about college football a little bit because I absolutely love it. And we're getting ready to go into a great weekend. Would love to hear your thoughts, when it comes to qualifying for the college football playoff. And so to go full circle back around to where we were, obviously need to have a 16-team college football playoff. Makes much more sense. Still love the opportunity for the group of 5 highest rated ranked, conference champion to get into the tournament, which most likely would maybe put them at the 16th seed, but that's okay. In a 16-team tournament, that would essentially put, Tulane or James Madison having to go into Indiana and play Indiana. And are they going to get the brakes beat off of them? Probably so. But what that does is it gives them great exposure. It gives them a lot of money and revenue and opportunity to go recruit at a higher level. And it gives all those other G5 schools just a fighting chance and something to work towards to succeed. But anyway, so we get to a 16-team bracket, and the other part that absolutely needs to go away in my mind, and that's exactly how I presented it, 15 years ago, is you need to take the human element out of it. This needs to be solidified on the football field and as much as possible. So that's where conference champions need to play the biggest role in my mind when it comes to getting into the tournament and where you're seated. But then when it comes to the at-large bids and the teams that aren't conference champions, it can't come down to a select closed-door committee that is making these selections. That is just the open door to corruption or any sort of, just opportunity for bias. And so I'm not saying that this committee is doing that, but it gives the public the opportunity to have that conversation. And so my suggestion, if you go back to, before the 4-team playoff, we lived off of the BCS for 15 plus years. Now, the BCS was an algorithm that broke down, strength of schedule. It broke down. A third of it was related to the AP poll. A third of it was related to the coaches poll. And then the remaining third was an algorithm using strengths of schedule and, games and different things like that. And we lived off the BCS rating system for, like I said, over 15 years. There's no reason why we can't go back, utilize that BCS system, probably even do it better now with some of the technology and the AI and different things that we have now to make that at-large bid process so much more, clear and professional. And number one, take the human element out of it and the politics, put it aside. So do with it what you will. That's just my thoughts on college football and the playoff this weekend. Really looking forward to Oklahoma, Alabama. I am love to see Oklahoma jump out and beat Alabama again. I think that they will, being at home. The Texas A&M Miami game, that is going to be fast and really, really good football. So really looking forward to Texas A&M Miami. And again, Tulane, Ole Miss, the game's already happened. More than likely Ole Miss will probably take it to Tulane. But again, you never know. That's what's so great about sports and going back to the greatness that we talked about before. They still have to put their cleats on. They still got to get on the field, stick their hand in the dirt, and go out and hit somebody. And when you give somebody a chance, you put somebody in a corner or you crack that door open a little bit to give them an opportunity, in football, you never know what can happen. And so you go up to Oregon and James Madison. Oregon, is definitely one of the best teams in the country, definitely has a chance to win a national championship. So James Madison does have their hands full. But looking forward to just a fun, competitive weekend that will set up an even better set of games in the next round. When you're looking at, what it's going to look like when you put Texas Tech, Indiana, Ohio State, and Georgia into the mix. And so going to be a great weekend of football. I'm also, for myself personally, been home here for a little bit of time, but now on my way to Fort Worth. Cannot wait to get down to the ABBI, the American Buck and Bull Incorporated, and stop number 3 of the Big Bucks qualifier. If you're new or if you're not a part of rodeo, but you love athletes, would love to check out young buck and bulls and the future superstars from the animal athlete side of things. The ABBI and the Big Bucks qualifier is going to be big time this weekend. There's going to be, I would guess, probably 25 90-point outs would be my guess here this weekend. So looking forward to that. Can't wait to get to Texas. So we will hope to see you all here soon. I appreciate you taking the time to, kind of chat a little bit about football. Would love to hear your opinions when it comes to the college football playoff and just the overall scheme of things. But, the last piece too that I failed to mention A lot of people compare the college football playoff to, the NCAA tournament and the bracket there. They have 64 teams and obviously real small schools get into there. When you look at it from a ratio percentage perspective, football has 136 schools that are eligible for the college football playoff. Right now there's 12. There should be 16. So at 16, that means 12% of the teams would make it into the playoff. Now, with the 64-team NCAA bracket in basketball, they're playing out of a pool of 350. So 64 of 350, that's 18%. So as you can see, the difference is not that drastic. So sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier, but just wanted to make sure to leave you with that little tidbit. When you're talking about the difference between one and the other, it's not as drastic as you might think when you go to 16 teams. And the opportunity for some of these small schools to get in there and at least have a fighting chance, or at least have one of them that has a fighting chance to make an appearance. But either way, hope you all have a great holiday season right here, and have a great Christmas and New Year, and look forward to seeing you all in 2026. But for right now, this is another episode of the Woodshed with Cody Wood on Equus Television, Equus Radio Network, and y'all have a good rest of your day, and thank you again so much for all the love and support over the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. I sure do appreciate it, but y'all have a good rest of your day. We'll see you on the next episode.
If you enjoyed the podcast, let us know. Contact Cody Wood at cody@equustelevision.net. Thanks for listening, and join us right here every week for the Woodshed with Cody Wood on the Equus Radio Network.